Volleyball season right around the corner, which is always one of my favorite times of year because I get to catch up with one of my favorite humans here at SIU. It's the head coach, Ed Allen. Coach, you've been at it now for a handful of days. You get started a little bit later than everybody else, but match is right around the corner, brother. How you feeling? How's the program?
Well, I'd like to first start with the fact that you referred to me as a human, and it's not often that I get that privilege. So thanks, Luke. But yes, we've gone at it about a week now, and have been in a week of two-a-days. Had a day off yesterday, which was much needed for all of us. But real excited about just how coachable our players are. You know, we brought in maybe one of the biggest classes that I've had since the first recruiting class that graduated for us last year, and 9 new players. So we're doing a lot of teaching.
You mentioned those ladies who are now gone. They were a huge part of your program, building it from where it was to where it is now. What has you comforted in what they've left behind, but now the ladies you're bringing in to continue to help build this thing?
Yeah, well, I think as much as anything, they helped us tremendously set the culture of the program, and it's apparent our upperclassmen are trying to do a great job of leading the new players that are in and creating the expectation that we have. And so, you know, I'm just very appreciative of the hard lifting that really that class had to do from its first year. It came in, it won 5 matches to winning 20 matches and only the second postseason bid in school history. And I think the second best turnaround in the country over the last 2 years.
You mentioned getting back to postseason play. And for volleyball, it's been able to grow those opportunities with the tournament that you guys were in, the MVIC. How good is it? You've been in college volleyball a long time. How good is it to see the game really start to grow and they're getting more opportunities? I understand ultimately the goal is to get into the big dance, get into the NCAA, but those other opportunities are huge for development, I'm sure, for your players who are returning.
Without question. I mean, there's just tremendous competition in when you get any postseason tournament, because you're dealing with teams that clearly have won more than they've lost and played good competition. But I think as much as anything, just trying to, as we have, set ourselves as one of the top 3 or 4 programs in the league on a consistent basis, and that's what this first recruiting class did a great job of establishing for us.
And you look at the Missouri Valley, they've had the runner-up in the tournament each of the last 2 years with Drake and Valpo respectively. What do you get out of those postseason tournaments that's just different? Coach Allen, you can't portray it. You really can't emphasize it any other time.
Well, I mean, it's play against quality competition, so you don't get away with some of the things you might get away with maybe half the teams that you play in regular season. I mean, all of the teams that are in, either whether it's the NCAA tournament or in the IBC, they're teams that have been very competitive through the course of a year, and then you hope that everybody's excited about continuing to play.
When you look at the league in terms of where you stack up, obviously last year finished tied for 3rd. I know Northern Iowa and Drake have kind of had their stranglehold at the top of the league these last couple of years. For your team to continue to make that jump, to continue to contend, to be there in the upper half, what do you really demand of them this year, and what do you believe the makeup of your team can be to be able to compete there in the upper half of the league?
Well, you know, we lose a ton of offense in players that we graduated last year, and so trying to have some of our juniors be able to carry a little bit more of the load. You know, as freshmen and sophomores, they didn't have to carry that load and really have to be lent on as much as what we've got to now, and so they're going to have to assume that. We're going to get hopefully more productive play out of the middle. We've spent probably the biggest emphasis in bringing in middles this year and kids that we think are very athletic and have a chance to develop into really, I believe, some of the best middles in the league. And so probably more balance. I think the ability to defend better at the net, and we should be able to do that because we've got more physicality there. But I think, you know, taking care of the ball and extended rallies are going to be things that we're going to have to do.
Coach Allen, we talked about a lot last year because you had such a senior-laden team and such a really strong core. You want player-led teams a lot, and you want your players really leading your voices. Knowing that there's been a little bit of turnover from a leadership standpoint, what have you seen the early going of your team starting to get their own voice and seeing some players on your roster maybe starting to fill in to that voice void that's there for your program?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, just like what you alluded to earlier, you know, being one of the top 3 teams in the league, there's an expectation. And, you know, being in postseason play, people are hungry to make the next step with it as well. I think that as much as anything, the group of seniors that I have right now with Maggie and Anna and those kids, had to suffer through 5 wins as a freshman, right? And so they clearly don't want to revisit that territory and understand really the price that has to be paid. And so I think they're doing a great. And the other part of it is when you begin to see, some of the expectations and the payoff as it relates to that, it's just a little easier to embrace some of the things and realize that it takes what it takes.
You brought up Anna. I know she's someone that, like you said, she's been around. She understands where the lows have been and now getting it to the highs. You eventually want to get this program where the expectation every year is you're winning conference championships, you're in the upper half of the league, where those 5-win seasons like it were are a distant past. They're starting to get there. How big of a deal has Anna been in terms of just the maturity of the program, what you expect from someone like her this year?
Well, I think that, she's been through a roller coaster of a career, from getting a chance to set the ball in a 5-1 situation to having to step back last year and set the ball in a 6-2 situation and probably in that mode again this next year. But she's been ideal in terms of just accepting whatever role it is that we ask of her and then going in and performing at a very high level.
Coach Allen, we can probably talk about a lot of things outside of just your team in terms of the landscape where college athletics is going. But for you, you've been around this thing a long time. You've acquired so many wins in your career. What still makes you tick to still like doing this, to still impact the lives of your athletes that you get a chance to see each and every day?
Well, I think that, one, just like what you said, the ability to impact people's lives and the ability to help them really position themselves for what their goals are in their life. But quite frankly, Luke, it's the opportunity to lace them up every day and kick somebody's butt. I have the desire to compete. I don't know if that ever leaves, but I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me coming back, is that I'm not sure that career coaches are much different than other addicts in the world. It's just it happens to be legal what we are addicted to. Right.
Absolutely. You talk about just that mentality you have to be able to lace them up, to go out and be able to really take somebody's will to beat another team. You try to get your team to embody that mentality. How important are these early practices now before you get into an exhibition with St. Louis to then ultimately game competition? How much of your time, Coach Allen, do you spend on the mental piece, to getting the mentality where you want your team to be?
Well, I think we spend every day to some degree in conversation as it relates to that, and then really in conversation about the mental volleyball game, what rotations look like, what you can expect out of that. We spend a lot of time in that in the preseason because we're going twice a day, and unfortunately the human body can't handle what I really like for it to have, right? Yeah. Which is about 6 or 7 hours a day of nothing but physical activity, and that's just not possible. And so we are practicing, close to about 5.5 hours, but, probably another hour of that during the course of a day is really leadership training or other pieces that I think will make them productive both on the court, in society, even in the classroom. The other part of it is right now, Luke, is they're professional athletes right now. They haven't even begun classes yet. So, next week's the real challenge because they're going to be in classes trying to balance all of that and yet come into the gym and have a coach that's not interested in what's left over.
Yeah. What are the best ways for you that you've tried to navigate through your coaching career of, I know the timeline maybe has changed a little bit in terms of progressions towards years, and it probably depends when your academic year starts and all those other things that go into it, but trying to make sure you get everybody to the starting line of a season, making sure you don't burn anybody out when you get going.
Yeah, well, I think you always have to worry about overuse injuries. Anytime that they're going from really doing stuff for about an hour a day in the summer on their own to now coach-driven practices that are 5.5 hours in length total, And so, I think that, the ability to, I think just measure where they're at. We've got an unbelievable trainer that does a great job of helping communicate what we believe is going on, and then just creating an expectation of, your performance can't really alter because you're sore or tired. As a matter of fact, you got to figure out how you're going to continue to compete when those things are going on. And so, I think as much as anything, just helping everybody understand what expectation is created when you have a commitment to one another.
You want to call Alabama A&M and move up that first tournament? You ready to go tomorrow?
No,
Or are you
I think I need about 2 more weeks, to be honest with you, Lou.
take advantage of the time that you
Yeah,
can get.
I'm gonna. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. You get to train, you get to be competitive, and nobody's losing yet. You know,
Yes, that's always
we're still undefeated.
Coach, when you do look at your overall schedule, what do you like about those early season tests that ultimately will get you ready for, as you know, when you get into the Valley, every night you got to be ready in the Missouri Valley Conference on the volleyball side?
Well, I mean, particularly this year. I mean, if you've had a chance to look at that schedule, it's the most competitive schedule in the league for league play. You know, and so, you know, I think the biggest piece is the early matches are manageable matches. They're not against top 25 teams. But yet they're quality enough teams that will help prepare us by the time that we get to league play. And I think it's important that this team really get off to a decent start where they can experience some confidence as we move into league play and really feel comfortable about what they can accomplish.
Of course, the end result is what it's all about, to get those wins and to stack them up early as much as possible. You look kind of like last year. Say it was a very streaky season for you, Coach Allen. When you guys won, you were able to stack up a lot of them in a row. Hit a skid, kind of had a couple in a row, and then got back in the winning race towards the end of the year. Is that something you bring up at all with this group in terms of trying the consistency, but being more of a level ship throughout the year?
Well, I think so. But, I mean, I think, you know, again, we were a program that's still building. And, you know, you still are trying to get to the right place in terms of confidence. And then when you look at it, I mean, the streak made sense with exception of a couple of matches of all of that, because we went from a manageable schedule to playing the toughest teams on the road out of all of that, and then you come back and begin again. And so, I mean, when I looked at it, if you were to told me that was going to go on before the season began, I wouldn't have been surprised. I mean, I wouldn't have liked it, but I wouldn't have been surprised that it could happen. And so, you know, I think a lot of that has everything to do with when you play people and when that is scheduled. And you know, we're gonna go through it this year to some degree, because we're going to hop out in league play and head to the Iowa schools to begin with, and then I think whether it's the very next weekend or the weekend following that, you're going to see UIC and Valpo. Yeah. And so, with that being said, you know, you've got 4 matches right out of the gate that, you know, if you're not careful, you can be 0-4 in.
Yeah, and the majority of those early season matches in the Valley are on the road too, which will obviously, I know, build some.
Well, and it's front loaded, and so what I mean by that is people have got to be patient. You're not getting what you maybe want to start the season. We can't allow that to affect us as we get midway through and towards the tail end of the season, when the schedule turns very manageable in all of that. So,
of course, early on, as I said, we were talking about your schedule and where you want to see it maybe strengthen your team as you go throughout. But as you go through these next couple of weeks, mentioned you have that exhibition with St. Louis. What are the biggest things you as the head coach that you want to focus on, that you're kind of lasered in on, that you want to see your group really try to bear down here over the next couple of weeks and you make a really important emphasis on?
Well, I mean, I think number one is we want to be able to extend rallies, and we want to be able to take care of the ball. We want to manage some of the hitting errors that we had a tendency to get into from time to time, and I, you know, clearly want to see us defend and particularly block better than what we've had. And so, and I think that just trying to see how some people are going to handle, you know, carrying a little bit more offensive load. You know, I mean, there's clearly going to be more on Annabelle and Kelly and CC and you know, Ella, who's coming in as a new player for us. I mean, all of those Penn players are going to have to be able to handle that load, as well as, you know, our middles trying to generate maybe 1.5 to 2 points more a set between blocking and attacking.
August 24th will be your exhibition, and then August 30th will be when it all counts, when you go up against Chattanooga down at Alabama A&M. Yeah. Coach Allen, it's here, brother. It's here.
Hey, I mean, that's what we're here for anyway. So
yes.
I'm looking
forward to it.
I mean,
everyone's like, man, you got to enjoy the summer. I'm like, no. You know, I mean, it's like there's a few of us around, but it's nice when you get going in the fall.
You can only fish for so long, Luke. I mean, at some point in time, it's
there's
time
only
to get
so
back
many
to
bike rides you can make.
That's right.
Eventually, you got to get locked in.
It's time. It's time to go to work.
Coach, we look forward to many more conversations throughout the year. Always do. Stay healthy, number one. Get to that starting line, and can't wait to when the season finally officially starts here in just 2 weeks.
Well, I appreciate that, Luke. Thanks.